Okay everyone, so we're starting the new Thackery Binx tombstone, and I have all my wording laid out here and taped down, so I'm going to start transferring it with the carbon paper. Carbon paper is my best friend, so glossy side down, slide it underneath your words or your letters, whatever you're going to transfer. My pack came with these little wooden dowels with these metal ball bearings on the end, so you just take those and just etch your words or numbers on there, and when you lift it up, it's all transferred. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the transfer on the stone, and I'm going to start carving now. And like I said in a previous video, I used a rotary tool, and I got this flex shaft attachment, which makes it so much easier because you can hold it like a pen. The bit that I use, and it's just one that I prefer, is this guy here. It's actually a grinding and sharpening Dremel bit, so that's the one that I use. And I like it because it's flat, so when you turn it in certain directions, it makes lines thinner or thicker. So I'm gonna get started on that. All the etching is done. Up here is going to be this cheap $5 plastic cap mask that I filled up with some great stuff, Gap and Crack, just to have a little bit of firmness in there so it's not just a hollow mask. I traced around him, and then I took the sanding bit, this guy right here, and etched out all around there so that he can be recessed in. Hopefully he'll stay at the moment. So I'm going to lock him in there with some foam board adhesive, some Monster Mud, and then we'll keep going. Okay, mask is mudded and glued in. So I did with this one as I did all the others. Around the edge I run a bead of the foam board adhesive and put some of the shavings on there. Today we're going to put the PVC down the middle of them. So on the other side of this, I'm going to etch out, I guess like a little valley, so I can stick these PVC pipes in between this and another piece of foam. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so I got my PVC pieces in there. I put some foam board adhesive in that ditch all over the top, and I'm going to glue the two pieces of foam together. Okay, so he is all glued together, and I'm going to make his base. So I cut two pieces to make a two-tier base and staggered them a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is trace around the base, make a square, and cut that out so I could slide him in there. I have the two bases underneath secured, little foam board adhesive in between these two. So as I said, I always run a line of the foam board adhesive around the edges to cover any kind of gaps when you cut it. But in order to cover those, I take my Bucket-O shavings, and I'm just going to press it into the seams here. And when it dries, some of it's going to crumble off, but a lot of it stays. And then when you paint it and stain it, it makes it look like chipped up stone. So I'll do this all around the edges. Okay, so while that is setting on the bottom, I'm going to add some cracks because it's not really going to disturb my base. So I bought this wood burner. It actually came, I got a hot wire foam cutter kit, and this little attachment came with it, which is great for cracks. So what I do with the cracks is I look for areas that would have cracking, soft spots in the stone, so anywhere there's like a break in the stone, it's now a solid chunk, would tend to be cracked up a little bit. And then also I look for little imperfections in the foam. That's probably a finger mark of mine. So I'm going to start with the cracks. So the cracks, the way I do it is I kind of think of lightning, and I just stick this in here and it starts burning away, and I loosely just kind of jagged add some cracking. While the base is also drying, and after I did the cracks, I added Monster Mud down the seams of the sides and on the top, just to kind of hide the seam there. And then I also got overzealous, so I just started adding it to the mask. So I think he's going to look pretty cool. I'm going to let this guy dry, and I'll hit it up again tomorrow. Okay, so I'm putting the second coat of dry lock on, and as you can see, it looks pretty cool so far. Now, as I talked about in other videos in my Dracula, when you shave with the Sureform shaver, and then you put the dry lock on, and like this one I have Monster Mud to cover the seams, it really does give it a good texture, like as if it was carved concrete. So I'm going to finish up with the second coat of dry lock. So one thing I wanted to show you guys was the back of this. And the reason I want to show you was because when I was first cutting and making this stone, I accidentally broke my board in half. And it was like on a jagged half. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gluing them together and I'm going to be sealing it. So I'll try to use it instead of scrapping a big piece of foam. So this back piece was actually cracked into two, and there's a line that it was cracked kind of like this. So you can see that even if you screw up and you break a board, when you glue it down, it will still work. So once you throw the dry lock over it, can't even tell. Second coat of dry lock on the stone is done. I moved on to the base earlier. One thing you want to keep in mind is when you do flip it over, any kind of gaps between the stone and the base, you want to fill with some kind of sealer, whether it's the foam board adhesive or some kind of caulk, and then dry lock over that. This is going to dry, and I will be painting later today. Woo! All the black is laid in. Now I remember why I try to limit the number of words on a stone, because I have to paint them all. But next comes the tea staining. Alright, staining time for this guy. As I've done before, I've mixed up some of my regular gray paint, some gray with black, and then I have a thing of water just in case. I want to dilute it a little bit. So I'm just going to start staining by taking my brush and starting at the top and letting it all run down, and let's see how he turns out.
Use thy voice, Sarah! Fill the sky! Bring the little brats to die!
Come, little children, I'll take thee away into a land of enchantment. Come, little children, the time's come to play here in my garden of magic.
Danny?
Danny?
Hey! Hey, you guys! Don't listen to her! Hey, up here! Don't listen to her!
Max, I figured it out.
What?
Winifred said, the candle's magic will soon be spent, and dawn approaches. The black flame candle only brought them back for this one Halloween night. And unless they can steal the lives of children, when the sun comes up, they're dust.
Yeah, but how can we make the sun come up? We've got Danny. We need a miracle.
Okay, so my first layers are on, and it looks a little bit darker than it does in the video at the moment. So I'm gonna let him dry, and if I figure that I need to add more dark, then I will do that. Here he is nice and dry. So you see all the different blends. And again, if you want it darker, you can just, you know, add more stain to it. So I am going to be dry brushing a little bit of white on there, and I already kind of started. So I just get my brush in here. And luckily, I had just bought a new dishwasher not too long ago, so I had this big cardboard piece, so I use this. Just wipe off as much as you can, and lightly just brush onto there. And it makes all the textures pop out a little bit. So I'm just lightly brushing over it with the least amount of paint. And I do the same thing on here. Light brush. A little bit more. Need more paint. And you see how it adds some depth to all of that texture that we got going on. So I'm going to finish him up, and then I'm going to move on to the head. Okay, more of the dry brushing. So I didn't touch this side yet. So you can see even with the texture, it looks good. But then once we start dry brushing, see how much cooler that looks? It really makes it pop out. I'm going to keep going. Here he is. I am finished. Well, I'm probably finished. I might add some green to him, and he'll definitely be getting mossed up, but not until closer to Halloween. So you see all that dry brushing really made all those textures pop out. And in the stone, all the blends with the tea staining, and down here in the base, all the cool textures that the dry brushing does. Well, folks, that was Thackery Binx. I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll be making more. Thanks for watching.